And yeah, so first, I have posted the complete set of notes to the course page. So because I gave this course once before and I wrote the notes then, and the notes I'm using are basically those. But I change them a little, update them, and where we are in the course at a given time will be indicated by a sign that says, here we are. Okay, here we are here. A signpost, that is only approximate. If more adventurous people among you, you can read ahead, you can do the exercises. Because of this abbreviated semester, there is a good chance that I may not get to the end of the notes. So if you are really interested in linear algebra, which you should be because it's a totally basic course, I strongly urge you to read the notes carefully and write till the end and more. I've given you two very good reference books, at least three. The Book of Artin is very good. Halmos is very good, and if you can get hold of it, the Book of Lax you'll find very interesting. Okay, the other thing is now we are going to pick up pace a bit. We're going to move faster, and you'll have to work to keep up. Finally, I see 58 people, 58 participants, and they've all signed in onto the chat. That's good. I hope the others will turn up as well. As I said, attendance is close to compulsory. Very good. So where are we? We've defined vector spaces. Over R. Scalars are the real numbers. And we've defined the notion of a subspace. So given a vector space, a subset, there is a question in the chat. I will respond to it. A subspace is a subset which is closed under addition and scalar multiplication, and it's non-empty. And then it follows very easily that if you take this subset and endow it with the addition that it inherits from the bigger set and endow it with the scalar multiplication that it gets from the bigger set, then you get the structure of a vector space, and the inclusion map is a linear map. It is well, you have to say your name in the chat. It's okay. I will remember this. Yeah. I mean, see, the point is you have to, I'm using this as a way of keeping attendance. Okay. So Soham and Shakti, yeah, that's fine. Very good. Okay, so now that we know the notion of a vector space and a subspace, what was the next thing? Linear map of vector spaces. We've done that also. And so now we are going to talk about associated to any linear map. T V to V tilde are some subspaces. There are two subspaces called the kernel of T, and this is usually denoted kernel T. And this is a subspace of the first vector space. And the second is the image of T, which is sometimes I denote it ImT and sometimes I denote it image T. I think in the notes I just call it image T. This is a subspace of the second vector space. So now the image is what you would associate to any map, linear or otherwise. It is just the range of the map. It so happens that if the map is linear, then the image is not an arbitrary subset of V tilde, it's actually a subspace. So this is an exercise, very easy exercise. The kernel, on the other hand, you can only define in the case of linear maps. You need, it's not something that you can naturally define for any map of sets. So this is what, these are all the vectors in V since the T of V is the zero vector of V tilde. So sometimes we call it the pre-image of the zero vector in V tilde. Now, again, it's a simple exercise to check that this is subspace. So let's do the exercise. Kernel of T.
Sir, why can't we define the kernel for any map?
Well, you tell me how you define it for any map. Supposing I'm given some map from offsets, some x1, x to y.
I mean, we define maps from vector space to vector space,
okay,
right?
Oh, no, okay. For vector space to vector space, certainly you can define the kernel for any map, but it makes sense only in the case of, I mean, what I meant was, supposing I'm just, see, for any map of sets x to y, the image makes sense. Whereas
yes,
the kernel doesn't make sense for a map of sets. That's what I mean.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah. The kernel of T is a subspace. Why? Why? Well, let's check if V1, TV1 is 0 and TV2 is 0. T of V1 plus V2, which is TV1 plus TV2, because using linearity of T, is 0 V tilde plus 0 V tilde, which is 0 V tilde. So if I have two vectors in the kernel, their sum also belongs to the kernel. If TV is 0, and lambda is a real number, T of lambda times V is lambda times T of V. This is by linearity, which is lambda times 0 of V tilde, because V belongs to the kernel, and lambda times 0 is 0. So, so if V belongs to the kernel, a scalar multiple of V also belongs to the kernel. So the kernel is closed under addition of elements as well as scalar multiplication of one element. So it's a subspace. I leave it to you to check that the image is a subspace of V tilde. Check. Image of T inside V tilde is a subspace. Now we come to important, and it's not difficult, but it is you have to get used to the idea, because there are the same phrase applies to two slightly different but very related situations. So this is the notion of direct sum. So to distinguish the two situations, we sometimes use two adjectives, and the internal direct sum and external direct sum. You shouldn't worry too much about it, but once you understand what's going on, there is no need to say internal direct sum, external direct sum, because it's very clear from the context what you're talking about. And finally, they're not too different. So for the moment, what I will talk about is the internal direct sum. So supposing, so before I reach, so this is what we are going to do. So before I talk about the internal direct sum, I must talk about the sum of subspaces. Note that there is no notion of an external sum of two spaces. When you talk about a sum, just a sum, it's always sum of subspaces. So given V and two subspaces W1 and W2, the sum W1 plus W2 is the set small w1, small w2, where small w1 belongs to capital W1 and small w2 belongs to capital W2. So this is a subset of V. Okay. So the sum of two subspaces is the set of all vectors you can get in the bigger space, which is got by taking a vector from an arbitrary vector from the first space, an arbitrary vector from the second space, and adding them up. So now exercise, very easy exercise. The sum is in fact a subspace. It's not just a subset, it is a subspace. Now we can talk about the internal direct sum. Suppose V is a vector space. And W1, W2 are subspaces. We say that V is the internal direct sum of W1 and W2, and we write V equal to W1 direct sum W2. This thing is called the direct sum sign. If V is W1 direct sum W2 and W1 intersection W2 is 0. So what does that mean? So let us see what this means. Equivalently, and this is an exercise. V is the direct sum of W1 and W2 if every vector in V every vector B in V can be written uniquely as a sum B equal to W1 plus W2, where small wi belongs to the big Wi. Okay, so now I have defined internal direct sum. And in today's lecture, we will not talk about external direct sums because I want you to go to the notes and read this section about direct sums, do all the exercises, think about it, and come back. And then we will continue with this direct sum business in the next lecture, because otherwise it'll be a lot of abstraction, not difficult, but abstraction piled upon abstraction, and the human brain can only take so much abstraction in a given day. Okay, so we will come back to, we will revisit direct sums, in particular, say what external direct sums are, in the next lecture. Okay, but so now let us one second. Let me just plan what I am going to do, and then I'll listen to you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is go back to examples, and then just hold your thought. So remember, examples, we have already talked about Rn. I think I did not talk about R0. It is there explained in the notes. You look at it. We know R1, Rn. We have done this, and and so what I'm going to do is look at use these. We already know what Rn is, so I'm going to talk about examples of sum and direct sum using R2 and R3. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Okay, so there was somebody had a question. 1 second.
Sir?
Yeah, I'm coming to you. Give me 1 second. Amit Parikh, you raised your hand. Are you? Yeah, very good.
Yes, sir.
Shoot.
Sir, I have a doubt in linear map. What is the physical meaning of linear transformation? I mean, what are the basic conditions of linear transformation which can be seen in graph?
Yeah, so I can't tell you. So see, the thing is that you will get slowly used to it when we come to the examples and work out some examples. Okay, and in particular, what do you mean by physical meaning?
Physical meaning which can be seen in graph.
Well, it can't be. How many things can you see in graphs? Because you can only see two-dimensional things in graphs. No, at most 3 dimensions. Right. So even geometric meaning, how much can you see? I mean, I'm not saying these are not valid questions, but you have to be a bit patient. And then I'm coming to examples, and slowly you will see. When you come to mathematics at a certain level, you don't expect that everything is motivated by something very concrete. Sometimes the definition comes first, and slowly you get to know what's happening by looking at examples. The point I say this often in modern mathematics, definition comes as the distillation of a lot of experience. A lot of experience with many phenomena go into a definition in modern mathematics. In modern mathematics, a definition is like a very coiled spring or a very kind of complicated bit of machinery that's been compressed into something. So you have to slowly open it and see its working parts, and only then the understanding will come. So you shouldn't expect that the understanding comes first. And I'm sorry, that is all I can say. Okay, so be patient.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So let us come to linear maps later. Let's still stay with vector spaces and subspaces. Okay. So now take R2. R2 is a case where we can actually have pictures because it's 2 dimensions. By the way, we have not in the course officially defined the notion of dimension, but I'm using the word dimension informally. Okay, so something you can draw on a sheet of paper. Okay, so R2 you can imagine like this. So R2 is R cross R, or it consists of pairs of points xy, where x, y are real numbers. Okay, this is the definition of R2. So you imagine like this x. So this is, we call the x-axis, the y-axis, and any point in the plane is a point of R2. The plane is identified with R2. Swaminathan Rajagopalan, you have a question.
Sir, when we are taking the sum of 2 subspaces,
Yeah.
Is it necessary that every vector is part of the sum, or is it just a subset?
No, it is a subset. The sum of 2 subspaces will be some subset of the ambient vector space. It need not be all every. So in general, it can be a proper subset.
Yeah. So you need not. So you can have many sums of 2 subspaces.
Yes. Given any 2 subspaces, no. Given 2 subspaces, the sum is well defined. Okay. So, okay. I think you didn't understand the notation. So so look at this notation here. So what does this mean? So you have to really understand this notation. So this means, so do you understand this notation?
Yes, sir.
What does it say?
So W1 plus W2 is a set that of all W1 plus W2 says that Wi belongs to capital Wi.
That's right. So that means you take some arbitrary vector in the first subspace, you take an arbitrary vector in the second subspace, add it up, you get some vector in V. Now do this for all possible pairs of vectors W1, W2, where, so in other words, you take all possible vectors from the first, no, let me do this somewhat more picturesquely. You have a machine which has infinitely many time, infinitely amount of time. It picks up pairs of vectors, one from the first subspace, one from the second subspace, adds it up, and plots the result in as a point in the ambient vector space V, and it keeps doing it for all pairs of vectors. So you get a whole bunch of vectors in capital V. You get a subset of capital V, and that is the sum.
Yes, sir. Got it.
A priori, it's only a subset. It could be like one of those plots you see of data points on a graph, but but in fact, as you take all pairs of points, all these points will together actually form a subspace, and that's very easy to see.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there somebody who doesn't see immediately why this is a subspace? Please raise your hand if you don't immediately see that what I have defined is actually a subspace of V. Come on, it's okay. If you are the least bit unclear what we are doing, you should explain. Okay. Hold your thought. We'll do the exercise first, the example first. Now let us take various pairs of subspaces and take what the sum is. Okay. So first, let me take W1 is just the zero vector in R2, and W2 is the x-axis. What is W1 plus W2?
So the x-axis itself.
Yeah. So does everybody agree to this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. This is W2. Now, second, W1 is the x-axis, y-axis, and W2 is the x-axis.
R2.
45-degree line, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Who said 45-degree line?
I did, Srivani.
Yeah. So do you want to think a little bit before you?
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No. So what do you think it is now?
Yeah, it'll be the whole real numbers.
No, what? No, whole what?
R2.
Okay, this will be in fact R2. Right? Because take up any point in R2 that is given by coordinates x1, y1. So if I take the vector x, this vector, which is x1, 0, which belongs to what I call W2, the x-axis, and if I take this vector 0, y1, which belongs to what I call the what I call the subspace W1, if I take this vector and take the sum, I get this vector. So an arbitrary vector in R2 can be got as a sum. Amit Parikh has a doubt about direct.
Yes, sir.
About linear transformation. So this is not to do, your question problem is not with linear with direct sums, but with linear maps. By the way, I have never said linear transformation. We have not
Yes,
talked
sir.
about linear transformations.
Sir, I have some doubts. As you told us, the transformation.
Wait. Are you listening to me? I said, I don't know what you mean by linear transformation because in my course, I have never used the word linear transformation.
Sir, you told us in linear maps the transformation
No.
of vector.
I said linear map. Did I ever say transformation?
No.
Okay. So now your question is about linear maps.
Yes, sir.
What is your question?
Sir, what is the meaning of T of V? Is it a transformation?
See what do you
T
understand?
of
Do
V.
you understand what a map is? Map of sets.
Yes, sir. Just like a relation function.
It, don't say it is like you know, see, when you talk mathematics, you have to talk reduce. When you come to a new definition, you make in terms of some definition, other definitions that you know already.
Yes, sir.
So you know what a map of sets is.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So now you understood what a vector space is.
Yes, sir.
So now supposing I'm given two vector spaces V and V tilde,
Yes, sir.
I defined a linear map as a map from the first set to the second set, which has some additional properties.
Yes, sir.
What are the additional properties?
T of V1 plus V2 is equal to T of V1 plus T of V2.
And
T of that lambda times of V is equal to lambda times of T of V.
yeah, so now the full definition is there. Now what is your doubt?
What is the meaning of linear here?
No, I'm just defining linear map.
Linear means is it injective?
No, see, so linear is an adjective that applies to the map. If a map, a map is said to be linear. So the whole thing is I've defined the notion of a linear map.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now there is another question which is useful. I will just, I'll use that as for my third example. So now I take W2 to be the x-axis, and I take W1 to be the subspace X, X in R. So in pictures, this is W2. This is W2. And can you tell me what W1 is?
A line passing
The
through
45-degree line.
It is the diagonal. Is that a subspace?
Yes, sir.
It is
Yes,
a
sir.
subspace because if I take two vectors that lie on the diagonal, the sum also lies on the diagonal. If I take a vector that lies on the diagonal and multiply it by a scalar, I get another vector that lies on the diagonal. Okay. So now the question is, what is W1 plus W2?
R2, sir.
Y is equal to x by 2.
R2.
Shakti, what did you say?
Y is equal to x by 2 line.
Sorry.
Y is equal to x by 2 line, whose slope is 1 by 2.
Okay. That is somewhat imaginative, but just think from the definition. So what is the definition of the sum of two subspaces? You pick an arbitrary vector from the first subspace, you take a arbitrary vector from the second subspace and add them up. On all the vectors that you get from the sum. Right? Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, is it area between W1 and W2?
So it's R2.
Shakti Chauhan, let me deal with one question at a time, please. Shakti Chauhan, are you
Yeah,
listening? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want to think about your answer again?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now somebody else asked, what if you take two parallel lines? What is the sum? Okay. So if you if I take two parallel lines, so supposing I take one of the subspaces to be the x-axis. So Advik Jagannathan, you take the first subspace, your first line is the x-axis. Can you think of another line that's parallel to the x-axis, which is also a subspace?
No, sir.
Okay, yeah, because it has to be
Because
subspaces must pass through the origin, right? Subspace is a sub-vector space. We've been through this because subspace is closed under scalar multiplication. It always contains the origin. See, I defined a subspace to be a subset that's closed under vector addition and scalar multiplication. From this, it follows that a non-empty subset. From this, it follows that a subset, the subspace, must contain the zero vector. You still confused? You look very confused. Advik.
oh no, sir, I got it.
Okay. Okay, now, yeah. So now, but we have still not quite decided what is W1 plus W2.
Is it R2?
Yeah, it is R2. So the point is, supposing I take an arbitrary vector x1 by 1 as before, I have to express it as a sum of a vector in W1 and W2 and another vector in W2. And this is, I will just draw it. So if you take this vector and take the sum, you will get this vector. I mean, I'm not, I'm here, I'm just waving my hands a bit. And so this is something, because I have not quite explained what do I mean by this vector, what do I mean by this vector. But if you work this out, if you give meaning to what I have said, you will find that indeed this is R2. Okay, now let us move to R3. And let's take 3 examples. This is x-axis, the y-axis, this is the z-axis. And now I'll be a bit more careful. I will call W1 the x-axis. W2 is the y-axis. And W3 is the z-axis. These are subspaces. Now, what is W1 plus W2?
So the XY plane.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, just give everybody some time to think. If you think you know the answer and if you are fairly confident about it, give people some time to think. Okay. So the answer has already been given. This is the XY plane. So what does that mean? This is points of the type X, Y, 0, where X, Y are arbitrary elements, are arbitrary real numbers, and the third coordinate is 0. So these are all the points in R3 where the Z coordinate is 0. Because if I take any vector along the XY, along the x-axis, and take any vector along the y-axis and take the sum, I can I can never get a vector with a non-zero z coordinate. So so the sum of W1 and W2 is a subspace which is the XY plane. So let me give this a name. I will call this the WX12. Actually, let me change the notation a little bit. Let me call this WX. Let me call this WY, WZ, WX, WY, and let me call this WX1. Now, now that I know what WXY is, supposing I take WZ direct sum WXY. What is that?
Is it R3?
Yeah, because what is it? It is all vectors that I can get by taking an arbitrary vector in WXY and an arbitrary vector in WZ and taking the sum. Okay, so arbitrary vector in WXY will give you all vectors with z coordinate 0, and arbitrary vector in WZ will give you all vectors with xy coordinate 0. And if I add them up, I'll get an arbitrary vector with an arbitrary xyz coordinates. So this is indeed R3. On the other hand, supposing I take WXY and take WYZ, what will I get?
Sir, R3 again.
Yeah, because okay, there are many ways of seeing this. This contains WZ. So, and already WXY plus WZ will give me R3, and WXY, YZ has even more vectors. I don't care. So if I'm taking vectors that I can get by picking an arbitrary vector in WXY and arbitrary vector in WYZ, I can choose the second vector just to lie in WZ, and I'm already done. So this is R3. However, supposing I take the vector 1, 1, 1, and I want to write it as a sum of a vector in WXY and a vector in WYZ, I can do it in many ways. I can write this as 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0 plus 1, 0, 0, 1. But I can also do this. 1, 1, 1, 2, 0 plus 0, minus 1, 1. Right? Because this does belong to WYZ. And though this belongs to WXY. Let me just do this more carefully. First of all, do you agree this first of all, do you agree that this equality? That's clear because addition of vectors is just addition of each coordinate. So this is correct. And do you believe? Do you also agree that this belongs to WXY and this belongs to WYZ? As does this belongs to WXY and this belongs to WYZ. Okay, so here is a case when in fact every vector in R3 can be written as a sum of a vector here and a vector here, but not in a unique way. So this is not a direct sum. So R3 is a sum of WXY and WYZ but not a direct sum. Yeah, so now I don't want to talk about direct sums anymore, because until you do you yourself read that section and do the exercises, this will, as I said, you have to slowly get used to these ideas. So I want to move back to some other things, but before that, let me deal with Vijayan Roy has raised your hand. So,
is there a way to count the number of ways we can decompose the vector space into disjoint sums?
You know what? You are very fond of counting number of ways, and this is a very interesting question. In general, if you are working with real vector spaces or an infinite field, the number of, if there is more than one way, typically there's, uncountably, or at least, there are usually infinitely many ways of doing it. So you will not be able to count. But if you are working over finite fields, in fact, you can at least ask the question, and sometimes there are interesting ways of counting these things. Okay, so I think you should spend some time with vector spaces over finite fields on your own, and I think then you will find interesting answers to these questions, but not over real vector spaces, because usually if there's more than one way, there is in fact infinitely many ways. Okay. Very good. Okay. Let me take a brief break. Okay, more examples. So this is example 4 from your notes. Let S be an arbitrary set then the set of functions S to R is a real vector space. So addition and scalar multiplication are defined as follows. So supposing I'm given two functions f and g from S to R, you define the addition of the functions to be f of x plus g of x. And if lambda is a real number, I define lambda dot f to be the function whose value at x is lambda times f of x. So this set of functions is sometimes denoted R raised to S.
What's the domain of this function? Is that whole real number line?
So just read what I have written. Who was asking the question? Sorry, was that Vijayan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What's the domain?
So just read what I have written.
Does that also, or
Yeah. Just read what I have written. So do you understand?
yes, but where should S belongs? X.
Just read where I have written F.
Okay, just subset. Okay.
What is a subset?
Arbitrary set. Yeah.
Huh?
got it.
Sorry?
S is the arbitrary.
S is an arbitrary set and F is just a map from the set to the real numbers. Yeah. So you take all maps from the set to the real numbers, and that is a vector space. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, is it mean that we can convert any function to another function by linear map?
No. No. There is no. All I'm saying is that if you take the set of all functions from S to the real numbers, that has the structure of a vector space. Yeah, I can add two functions from an arbitrary set into the real numbers, and I can multiply an arbitrary function by a real number to get another function. And I have in fact just look at the equation. Why don't you just spend a little time looking at what I have written? I can give you time. If you look, anytime that you think I'm going too fast, just stop me and say, what you should do. Okay, here's a piece of advice. If you think I am going, see, when I write, especially in my notes, whatever I write, you have to read it line by line and make sure you understand the meaning of what is written. Now,
Okay,
when
sir.
I'm speaking, sometimes I speak too fast. When I write sometimes messily and sometimes I make mistakes. So you have every right to tell me, look, you're speaking too fast. You're writing too fast. What you write is not clear. Stop and give us time to read. This is your right as students. And it's very, very important that you stop. But you have to conversely look at what I am writing. And make sure you understand, what is it that I'm writing. I'm trying to write precisely, but sometimes I fail to do so. So Abdullah, you read it carefully. So,
Okay, sir.
yeah, no. I mean, it is really my failure if I am going too fast. So you have a right to stop me. Srimati, suddenly you. No, I can't hear you. You muted yourself. You're still muted.
The mic is probably not working, so she's typing.
Are you? Do you want to write something in the chat box? We can't hear you. No, this is you're puzzled about my notation. Yeah. So, this space of functions from a set. So this is some stupid bit of notation that, but if you are going to be sort of pure mathematician, you will encounter it more and more. So let me just, and actually, this might be I'm just going to say something, but you shouldn't get distracted by this is not so important now. Okay, but since I've begun this discussion, let me just finish it and then put it in a box and forget about it. Okay, given sets X and Y, X raised to Y is a notation. There's nothing more than that. Set of maps from Y to X. Okay, now let's just put this in a box and forget it for the moment. But you will find it somewhat useful to know this notation. It even has it's even useful as a guide to intuition. Okay, because this is not so exotic. There's a reason why this notation is chosen. In fact, almost immediately I will give you an example. Okay, so just be a little patient. So now can I go on? But others, who was asking but it's really important that this page you understand. See, we are building new vector spaces from old. And you see, mathematics, the power of definition, Swaminathan, I will explain the notation later. The power of mathematics is that you can build new concepts on top of old, right? You somehow define the real numbers, and then suddenly you can define R to the n. Okay, for any natural number n. That's a big expansion of the number of examples you have. For every natural number, you have now a vector space. Now, I'm generalizing that even further. Take any damn set S. S could be all the students in your batch. S could be all the people in the world. S could be all these stars in the universe. Okay. Now, supposing I'm given a function from the set to the real numbers, I can think of that as a vector because I can add these functions. I can multiply these functions by real numbers. For example, if I take if I take the amount of money that each person has in the bank, okay, and agree that if the money is no, this is a bad example. See, okay, let me not try to give examples because natural examples are mathematical. Okay, but the point is, this is a useful construction which will be useful. Okay, just take it on faith that this is a useful construction. Okay, because a lot of things that we encounter later will be special cases of this. So let S be the set 1 to n. Then there is a natural isomorphism R to the S to R to the, what I call R to the n. So this consists of maps from the set 1 to n to R. And this consists of n tuples of real numbers. And what is the natural isomorphism? it takes f to the n tuple f of 1, f of n. And this is clearly an isomorphism because this map is 1, 1 onto and linear. So this is an isomorphism of real vector spaces. So this kind of explains my notation also, but the point is in the universe of R to the S, my S need not be a finite set of the finite set 1 to the n. It can be some much crazier sets. Now, another way of getting new of constructing vector spaces. Sorry, not constructing. Getting new vector spaces.
Excuse me, sir.
1 second. Huh? Yeah.
Sir, could you explain the last point? How is it 1 to 1 onto and linear? I don't quite see the map.
You don't see. First of all, do you understand the map?
Yes, sir, but could you elaborate it?
First of all, do you understand the map?
I don't think I do. No, sir.
Okay. So do you understand the two spaces involved?
Yes, sir.
So what is the first space? It's a space of, first of all, what is my set in this example? It is a set of integers 1, 2 up to n. Okay. So R to the S consists of maps from the set S to the real numbers. And on the right, R to the n consists of, my definition of R to the n is n tuples of real numbers. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now, on both cases, we have defined vector space structure. Okay. On the left, addition of functions is addition of the values of the functions. Scalar multiplication of a function by a scalar is multiplication of the value by the scalar. On the right hand side, in Rn, addition of vectors is coordinate wise addition. And scalar multiplication of an n tuple is multiplying each element, each coordinate by the same scalar. And the map that I have from R to the S to R to the N is I take a function f and associate to it the n tuple of real numbers, f evaluated at 1, f evaluated at the point 2, f evaluated at n. 1, 2, 3, 4, n, these are elements of the set S.
Understood, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the map I have defined. Now I claim that this is actually a linear map. It is 1, 1 and onto.
I think now I see why it is 1, 2 and on. 1, 1, 1 to 1 and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can you please once more explain that why is it onto?
Okay. Supposing I give you an arbitrary n tuple of real numbers, can you imagine that there is a function that will give this?
Sir, if the function is not invertible?
Sorry?
If the function is not invertible?
No, what do you mean the function cannot be invertible? No, f is a map from a finite set to the real numbers. How can it be invertible? It can never be onto, no?
Yeah. Oh, I think I can see. Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
Yes, I got it. I was actually thinking something wrong. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, so if those of you who are feeling slightly lost or impatient, because I'm sticking with somewhat abstract things. Just be a little patient. We will soon be dealing with very concrete things, namely matrices and linear maps. So I had to make a choice. Do I begin with matrices and then do the abstract stuff later, or the other way around? I decided to go with the abstract stuff first because I think it's better to get it out of the way. And also because you are now new to CMI, where abstraction is going to be part of your life, whether you like it or not, you might as well decide to like it. Okay. Now, another way of getting new vector spaces from old. Let V, W be vector spaces. And let L, V, W set of linear maps from V to W. So supposing I am given two linear maps, S and T. What is S plus T? Well, it's this is S of V plus T of V, and lambda dot S of V is lambda S of V. So the set of linear maps from V to W itself forms a vector space. You can add linear maps and you can multiply linear maps by a scalar. So this is another way of constructing new vector spaces from old. And what is a zero linear map?
Identically equal to zero.
It is
Sir, all elements of V go to 0 of W.
very good. Every element of, so sends every V in V to 0 W. Okay. Now, that's it. I mean, so now there is a whole bunch of exercises that that exist in this section, which I will leave you to do. And then, as I said, I promise that we will revisit the notion of direct sum later. Now, the next topic is going to be. One second. Let me just announce the next topic. So that is going to be section 5, which is going to be linear independence, basis, and dimension. Okay. So now I think I should not begin this today. So let's now stop the recording and spend the rest of the time clearing your doubts.